Today I'm making an egg-free chocolate cake. It also has no milk in it. So I've got some ingredients already in my bowl. I've got some sugar in here. I have my all-purpose flour. I have my Dutch cocoa powder. I have some sugar. I have some salt, and I'm gonna add in my baking powder as well for this. And I'm also gonna add in some instant coffee, some instant espresso powder. This is just a Nescafe espresso powder. And that is it for my dry ingredients. So I'm just gonna mix all of this together. I find that if I kind of cover the cocoa powder, it doesn't fly everywhere. So I'm gonna go ahead and mix this all together. So these are all of my dry ingredients. Now I'm making 3 8-inch rounds today. So this is quite a bit of mix. You could, of course, make a smaller cake if you want. Okay, switch over to my whisk and get that all nice and mixed in. Now, instead of eggs, I'm going to be using vegetable oil. I'm also going to be using a little bit of vinegar, some homemade vanilla extract, and water. So pretty simple cake. The leavening action happens between the baking powder and the vinegar. That's gonna really help create that rise. Also, the cocoa powder is very alkaline, so that's also going to help with that reaction. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and get this into my KitchenAid bowl. Okay, so now I've got all of my dry ingredients in, and I'm just gonna pop this on. I'm just gonna give it a little mix just to incorporate any of the flour that was on the bottom. And I'm gonna put in my vanilla. So I'm going to put in 3 teaspoons of my homemade vanilla extract. If you want the recipe, you can get it in another video on our site or on the YouTube channel. And this full recipe with all of the measurements can be found on our website. Okay, so what am I missing? I'm gonna go ahead and add in my oil. So this is just a vegetable oil. Take this off, this is super in my way. So I'm gonna get all that goodness in there. This is what's gonna keep the cake nice and moist. And then I've got some water here, and I need to get 1 more cup because this measuring cup wasn't quite big enough. I like this cake because it's super chocolatey, and the vanilla as well as the espresso powder just kind of helps elevate the taste. You always want to get down to eye level with your liquid measuring cups just to make sure you've got the right amount in there. And then last but not least, my distilled vinegar. And I'm going to give this a little mix before I add my paddle attachment back on. You can see it's starting to bubble up, which is exactly what you want. And you want to do this slow. So this is a very loose cake, so you just want to make sure that you scrape underneath where the little knob is if you're using a KitchenAid at the bottom of the bowl, just to make sure there's no loose powder. And you just want it to become smooth. So that looks pretty good to me. I'm gonna let this drip. I'm gonna grab my prepared pans and then we'll do the next step. So I have my pan here, and I'm gonna go ahead and put some of my cake mix in here. I also have a second and a third pan. This one's smaller than my other 2, so I'm just gonna make sure that I clear the weight out every time and add the same amount in. And I'm just gonna keep doing this. I'll start with the 2 that are similar in weight. And I just keep doing this until I get the same amount in each pan. My cakes are all ready to go in the oven. These 2 cakes have more batter in it than this one because this one is only 2 inches high. These 2 are 3. So I will be adjusting my cooking times accordingly, but you want to cook this for at least 30 minutes or until a toothpick is removed with only a few crumbs. So into the oven we go. Our cakes are out of the oven, and you can see that they have pulled away from the side. They're very shiny. And I'm just gonna take an offset spatula and I'll just run it around. I did grease these and put parchment in the bottom, but I always like to do this just in case I didn't grease it very well in one spot. This will just ensure it pulls out. And then I'm just gonna take a parchment round, and then that just ensures that my cake doesn't stick. I do have another piece of parchment laying down on my counter, so I can just move that one out of the way. There we go. So I will just let these cool off, and then I will be ready to do something with them.